various layers of this stratified squamous epithelium, beginning at the most basal layer. This is known as the germinal or Malpighian layer. This is the layer that's situated immediately adjacent and lying on an underlying basement membrane. Consists mainly of columnar-like cells, basically, that are regenerating all of the other cells in the stratified squamous epithelium. This, along with the spiny layer, which is immediately adjacent to it, basically are largely bound together by numerous desmosomal contacts, helping maintain the integrity of this epithelium, because certainly stratified squamous epithelial layers in skin are under considerable stress. Layer 3, as we move toward the surface of the skin, is the sealant layer. It's known as the stratum granulosum. It consists of more flattened epithelial cells filled with basophilic keratohyalin granules. And basically, when viewed at the electron microscope level, these are membrane-coated granules that provide the sealant necessary to protect this epithelium from penetration by substances outside the layers of the skin. As we move closer to the outside, a stratum lucidum is a transitional layer of epithelial cells that are basically losing or have lost their membrane and non-membrane bound organelles, so they're relatively clear staining and comprise pretty much a small single layer in the epidermis. But note that the stratum lucidum is only found typically in areas of the thickest skin, which is found in the palms of the hand and the soles of the feet. And finally, the outermost layer of the epidermis is basically the stratum corneum, which consists of very flattened anucleated squamate cornified keratinized cells that are basically close to being desquamated at the most superficial layers of the epidermis. The epidermis, fundamentally, all of these layers consists of various forms of keratinocytes. And basically these provide not only the dominant cell type in a stratified squamous epithelium of skin, but obviously the keratinocytes that are generating the keratohyalin granules provide the barrier function of the epidermis. Other specialized cell types that are found in the epidermis include melanocytes. These are derivatives of neural crests that migrate into the basal layers of the epidermis. Their job, as their name suggests, is to produce the pigment melanin in the form of melanosomes. Melanin is then transferred to the keratinocytes, and it really is the keratinocytes that convey the color to skin, even though the pigment melanin is produced in the much less numerous melanocytes in the basal layers. Some diseases associated with stratified squamous epithelium associated with skin, and it's important to make the distinction between pemphigus and pemphigoid. Pemphigus is an autoimmune blistering disorder caused by disruption of the desmosomes linking the keratinocytes in the basal layers of the epidermis. Psoriasis results from an increase in the number of proliferating cells in these basal layers, particularly in the basal plus in both the Malpighian layers, the stratum basale plus the stratum spinosum, resulting in basically a greater than normal epidermal thickness and a greater than normal turnover of those epidermal keratinocytes. Albinism occurs when melanocytes are actually unable to synthesize melanin. Vitiligo is a case where the melanocytes themselves are destroyed, and then generally this is secondary to an autoimmune related dysfunction. Both of these obviously would result in depigmentation, a lack of melanin pigments being taken up into the associated keratinocytes. Pemphigoid is a blistering disorder that occurs when hemidesmosomes are disrupted between the basal layer of the epidermis and the epidermal junction. So pemphigus was a desmosome disorder between keratinocytes. Pemphigoid is a blistering disease, again autoimmune, that basically results in a disruption of hemidesmosomes at the level of the dermis-epidermis junction. And then finally, let's look at a light micrograph of these various layers. You can see the pink layer at the bottom of this light micrograph is the underlying dermis, basically highly vascularized, containing nerve endings, specialized receptors, blood vessels, and so on and so forth. The actual epidermis itself is avascular, and you can see its stratified components here. The area indicated by letter B is basically the germinal layers, the Malpighian layers, the stratum basale as well as the stratum spinosum. The layer indicated by letter G is the stratum granulosum, the sealant layer. You can see a little more darkness, a little more basophilia associated with this area because of the keratohyalin granules. You can just make out a very thin lucid layer that's situated immediately adjacent to the granulosum layer indicated by letter L. And then you can see the outermost cornified layer of stratified squamous cells having lost all of their organelles and close to being desquamated indicated by letter C.